Hi everyone. Today we're going to try something a little different here at Tutor Aviation. We're going to try and review a book by Peter Robison called Flying Blind that describes the inside story of Boeing's biggest failure, the 737 MAX crisis. Now, this isn't a paid advertisement for the book, but rather just my commentary and analysis of an excellent piece of work that highlights some unusual dangers in aviation. It's interesting to note that the 737 MAX crisis wasn't a result of one bad system. It was a result of hundreds of decisions made over decades. And today we're breaking down what the book Flying Blind exposes about Boeing's biggest failure and how the world-leading engineering company lost its way. Now, for decades, Boeing was the gold standard of aviation engineering, with aircraft like the 747, 757 and 777. They're all triumphs of innovation and safety. But Flying Blind highlights there was a clear turning point when Boeing's leadership stopped being driven by engineers and started being driven by Wall Street. Cost-cutting replaced craftsmanship, deadlines replaced testing, and the priority quietly shifted from build it right to build it fast. When looking at the MAX issues, it's always helpful to put some context to the environment that Boeing found itself in. Airbus had just launched the A320neo, and at this time Boeing was caught on the back foot. Airlines wanted fuel savings immediately. Airbus was offering it. Boeing wasn't. Airlines wanted speed to production. Airbus was offering it. Boeing wasn't. Boeing also knew that a clean sheet aircraft would take around 10 years to complete, and executives didn't want that. So what was their solution to compete? Re-engine the 737 again. So what was the problem with this? The 737's low-slung power plant made the design harder to fit larger engines. Instead of redesigning the airframe, Boeing made compromises. One, and then another, and then another, until MCAS, which I'll get to in a minute, became the patch holding the whole idea together. MCAS has become a symbol of failure, a system built on pressure. But Flying Blind makes something very clear. MCAS wasn't the core problem, the culture behind it was. During the development, there were tangible indications that something was very wrong. Internal discussions warned about emerging risks. Test pilots raised questions. Engineers questioned why the system relied on a single angle of attack sensor. But Boeing was under enormous pressure to avoid extra pilot training and had openly promised airlines that MAX would fly just like the NG. Now, having to admit the aircraft required simulator training meant losing deals to Airbus. So MCAS became more powerful and all-consuming for Boeing. However, it was also more hidden and less understood by the very pilots that were expected to fly with it. So, as was totally predictable, with the MAX now in active service, there were two flights, that of Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, that changed Boeing's reputation. Two crashes, 346 people killed, and the crews fought the aircraft into the ground, all the while without ever knowing MCAS existed. Peter Robison details how completely preventable they were. The book reveals emails from Boeing employees expressing fear, frustration, and disbelief that such a critical system had been kept from pilots. The tragedy wasn't just mechanical, it was organisational, it was cultural, and it was systemic. One of the most confronting sections of Flying Blind exposes how the soft regulatory body had become, and that was the FAA. Years of lobbying and budget pressures had eroded independence. Boeing engineers were increasingly improving their own work under a delegated authority. Oversight had now been transformed from strict scrutiny to trust. And when oversight becomes trust, accountability disappears. The MAX crisis wasn't a Boeing failure, it was that of a regulatory failure too. This book isn't just a historical recount, it's a warning. Flying Blind highlights critical lessons that aviation can't ignore. Lesson 1, a degraded safety culture is invisible until it isn't. Lesson 2, human factors must be owned, not hidden. Lesson 3, engineers must be heard, not overridden. And lesson 4, transparency saves lives. Every major disaster has a cultural root, and the 737 accidents were no exception. So the biggest question now is, can Boeing recover? And to date, there's been signs of change and signs of denial also. Engineers are gaining influence, but the financial pressures remain immense. Peter Robison leaves us with his final thought, and this can be applied to airlines and manufacturers globally. Boeing's future won't be determined by its aircraft. It'll be determined by whether it chooses culture over cost and engineering over earnings. I strongly suggest anyone that's interested in aviation, organisational culture, and a genuinely good writing, then grab this book and read it. You'll really enjoy it. If you want more deep dives like this into safety engineering, human factors, hit subscribe and let me know. If you be so kind in the comments to let me know what else you'd like me to review, any other aviation books, then please let us know and we'll do some research. Stay safe and see you next time.